Welcome to Inkwell Spoken Presents Common Genius, Uncommon Destiny. I am your host, Reggie Key, and today I have with me my niece, London Hardy. London, welcome to the show.
Hi, thank you for welcoming me.
What's going on?
Everything.
Oh, everything. I don't know why my voice went like that. I said, what's going on? That's not the right intonation anyways. What's everything? What's going on? You care to talk about it, or is it good stuff?
In the middle, I guess.
In the middle. That's about how life is, right? In the middle. For all those who are tuning in, this is the week of St. Patrick's Day, but this is not the reason why both of us are wearing green. I'm wearing this shirt, and it just happens to be green because it says that I am the Funkle, the fun uncle. And since London is my first niece, then this goes for her. And London, you're wearing green because
I go to school. My school uniform is green and blue, so I just decided to wear green today.
yeah, makes sense. All right.
Yeah.
So London, I told you that I was going to talk to you. I talked to you and your mom about this a few years back, but you're saying you don't remember, which is good because then this will either be a refresher that you remember later on, or it's just new content in general. So you heard the name of the workshop is the same name of my last book, Common Genius, Uncommon Destiny. And let me just start with that question. Like, what do you think this is? What do you think this really means when I say common genius, uncommon destiny?
Well, I really think that it means who we are, like all of the people you've interviewed, what their strategies are in life, what they love, what their passions are, and basically their genius.
Yeah. So even though my main goal is to let everybody who I can come in contact with know that they have a unique brand of genius that's specific to them. That's what makes the genius uncommon. I mean, that's what makes the genius common. But even in the commonality of this genius that we all share, it creates this unique destiny because you have a unique imprint that's only really you can walk out. And so what we have to start to do at first, though, is just try to figure out how special and unique you are, and it has nothing to do with anybody else but you. So with that being said, the second question is, do you consider yourself, London, to be a genius?
Yes and no.
Okay, explain that, please.
Because sometimes I'm just like, don't have the time to just get up out of bed, go to school, think. But other times I want to get out of bed and go to school and try my hardest.
Okay. So you mentioned school as it relates to genius. So do you think that genius is academic?
It can be anything, really.
Yes, it can actually. That's exactly my point. And so whether or not you get out of bed or not, you still have genius potential on the inside of you. Whether you try your hardest at school or not, which we do want you to try your hardest, but whether you try hardest at school or not, there's still this genius potential on the inside of you that may or may not have anything to do with what type of grades you're getting or whether or not you made the honor roll or whatever have you. Okay. There are those who are genius intellectually, but to what you said, to your point, there's many different types of genius. Okay. And so a lot of times I have to try to convince people that they're a genius. Do you know that most of the time when I ask people, they're like, nope, I don't consider myself to be a genius. And so what it causes me to ask them then is, well, who do you consider to be a genius? So that's my third question to you. I won't keep counting these questions because it's going to get too high. But who do you consider to be a genius, London?
Most likely everybody in my family, because they're the people that I look up to, the people I talk to the most, the people I care about. So I feel like they're the geniuses to me.
Oh, okay. In your family?
Yes.
Okay. You want to name names or what are we doing? Like,
I'm not going to name names because I'm not going to name everybody.
I'm not saying you got to name everybody. Okay. You don't have to say a name, but most of the time when I talk to people, do you know what the number one answer is that people say?
You?
No, I appreciate that, but nah. The number one answer that people say most times is Albert Einstein. Like instantly. You don't know how many times I've gone into schools and done this workshop and been in classes with 20, 30, 300 students. Most of them every time will say Einstein without me having to say the name. Everybody just has this concept of genius being associated to Einstein. And I'm not saying that he's not a genius, but do you know the problem with everybody associating genius to Albert Einstein?
Yeah,
What's the problem?
because that's not all the genius.
So you kind of broke up on me there, but what I heard you say at the end is, I believe, is that he's not all of the type of genius that there is. Is that what you said?
Exactly.
Yeah, right. So Albert Einstein was what? He was good at physics, right? He came up with the theory of relativity. He's been dead for a while now, but his theories and his postulates are still being proven. When we look out into space and we look at the light that's coming from these galaxies from millions and millions of miles away, his concepts are still being proven with the most recent technology that we have today that he didn't even have access to back then. So I'm not taking anything away from Albert Einstein. He was an academic genius. He was a physics genius. But there is something I want to share with you about Einstein. Did you know that he was not a good student?
Yes, I did a research project on him.
Tell me a little bit about Einstein then. I didn't know, either I didn't know or I forgot that you had done some research on Einstein. Tell me about him.
He was smart, but not really in school. He had very mentally different ways to get answers correct. Like sometimes he pour a bucket of ice over his head when he would try to start working.
Really? I had never heard that. Okay. Can you imagine doing that in a school? Just like, wait a minute, I got to get this answer and just pour a bucket of ice over your head. Like, will people look at you strange?
Yeah, I can't
Yeah,
do that.
yeah. I mean, you see his hair, right? His hair wasn't always like that, but he was definitely a quirky and unique type of student. He would visualize he would visualize is another word for daydream. He would be in school, like looking out the window, and the teacher, he would do this even in college, right? And the professor would be like, hello, Einstein, can you like check back in? And he even got a letter purportedly came from home or came to his house from his teacher that said, hey, look, Einstein, y'all might want to like have him work with his hands because he's not grasping the concepts here. And so all that really speaks to is that his learning style was different and wasn't recognized as the normal learning style from his professors and teachers as what they were looking for out of students. It just meant he thought differently. And there's nothing wrong with thinking differently, right? So he was just a different type of thinker. So I share that with you because I want everyone to know, starting with you, that even if you're a different thinker, even if your thought process, the way you receive information is different from someone else who's deemed to be smart or deemed to have a high GPA, that does not mean that you don't have genius potential. It just means that you think different and you should think different from other people, right?
Yeah.
Yeah. Okay. So the problem when people begin to say Einstein, Einstein, Einstein is many times what they do is as they attach this genius word to Einstein, they disassociate or they detach it from themselves because they're like, I ain't Einstein. I don't know what he's talking about. I don't know what E equals MC squared is remotely talking about. So I must not be a genius because that cat is a genius, but that means by association, I am not. And that's a flawed way of thinking. But we do this a lot as people. Like we like to compare ourselves to other people. And most of the time when we compare ourselves, I mean, we either comparing ourselves to somebody that we know is not like us, that's like on the lower end, or we compare somebody that's not like us, that's on the upper end, because we either want to like be like, well, at least I'm not struggling like this person. But on the other extreme, we're like, well, I'll never measure up to this person. And it's hard to be confident in who you are if you're always measuring yourself according to what somebody else is doing, who has a different genius altogether. And Einstein understood this because he has this quote. I'm gonna give you a quote from Einstein. Again, I like to use the word purportedly because you know the internet be lying sometimes. But I saw this quote and it had Albert Einstein's name associated to it. So I'm gonna say that Albert Einstein said this. Are you ready for the quote?
Mhm.
Let me know if you've heard this before. Okay. It's like this. He said that if you judge a fish by how well it can climb a tree, it'll spend its entire life thinking it's stupid. You heard that before?
No.
Good. So actually, you have because like I said, I talked to you and your mom a couple of years ago, but it's okay.
Oh.
What does that mean to you? Do you need me to say it again?
Mm, I think, I mean, not gonna lie, fish do have a pea brain because they're really tiny, but still, they're smart enough to know not to climb a tree and not to leave their fish tank or full of water. So I don't really know what he means by that, though.
Okay. Well, let's start there. Like, yeah, do fish belong on land?
No,
Should they be climbing trees?
no.
So why would somebody who knows what a fish is sit there and try and judge it by how well it can climb a tree? Because fish belong in the where?
The ocean,
The ocean or the water. And what do they do in water?
swim.
They swim. Like this is what they're designed to do, right? So
Mhm.
it's all about knowing what's your element, what's your lane, and not letting anyone, including yourself, judge you by a lane that you were never meant to be in. No one should be judging a fish by how well it can climb a tree. But if that fish, was able to, I mean, if let's just say this fish has some components of being human, if the fish could hear that and kept hearing it over and over again, you don't measure up because you're not climbing this tree right. You're not climbing this tree like this bear or this cat over here. And the fish is like, oh snap, like maybe something is wrong with me because I can't climb a tree like a fish or a cat. But the fish need to snap out of it and be like, nah, dude, like put me in the water and then judge me by that though. If you put me in this water, you're gonna be able to judge me in a whole different way, and you're gonna see my genius unlocked right before your eyes. Because that's where it's supposed to be. And my job is one of my jobs is to help people figure out where they're supposed to be. Do you want to know where you're supposed to be, London?
Yes and no.
Yes and no? Yeah, I think I might understand why you say no. I'm gonna give you a chance to answer that if you'd like to. But most of us, when it gets to this place where it's like, ooh, this is a place where there is some accountability, where this is my lane, and if people begin to know that this is my lane, it's like Spider-Man, right? With great power comes great responsibility. Like with great genius comes great responsibility. People are gonna start having an expectation of me if they know like this is where you're like supposed to be. Like what's the great? Where's the greatness, right? So that's why I think you're saying no. But I'm gonna let you tell me though. Why are you saying like yes and no?
Because I don't want to stay in one place. I
Want to stay in one place? Okay.
If I was like in Maryland and I wanted to go to New York, I don't want to stay in Maryland. I want to travel, go around the world, visit other things, eat other things, be with other people.
But you can take your genius like around the world though. It's not like local to Maryland.
That is
Your
true.
genius is on the inside of you. Remember, I kept saying the genius potential? Like it's on the inside of you. So you can take this thing anywhere. Some people when we get into, so I'm going to help you define what your genius is by three components. Okay. I mentioned them at the beginning and I'm gonna mention them again now. I'm gonna help you define them by your passion, your talent, and your purpose. Once you get what these three things are, it'll begin to show you. It's like a puzzle that you're putting together. Like, oh, this is where my genius is. And I've talked to people who have several different things that they're passionate about. I've talked to people who have several different talents that they have. If you have several talents, which I believe you do, and you have several passions, which we'll find out if you do, then you have several different geniuses. You have several different types of genius. There's a couple things that I'm passionate about. There's a couple different talents that I have. And when I combine them in the right way, I can tap into multiple types of genius. It's really that simple, and so can you. It's pretty simple, right? Does that make sense?
Hmm.
All right, dear, let's talk about it. So when I say this word passion, what do you think of?
Goals and dreams.
Goals and dreams. That's pretty lofty. Yep, passion does help you address your goals and dreams. What are you passionate about, London?
Don't tell my mom I said this, but I like knives. I don't know why. I just think they're pretty cool. Weapons in general.
This where you are now? You like knives? Okay. I'm not gonna tell you, but I mean, I'm not gonna tell you, but this is gonna go on YouTube later, so she probably will eventually see that. I mean, I heard you got something for Christmas or your birthday, or
Um, resin, and my dad bought like knife molds that I can make, so I make those frequently.
knife molds. Okay, okay. So I know that you've had several different things that you have focused on, and there's nothing wrong with that. You got to explore the world and figure out what you like. I know at one point in time you liked singing, right? I know at one point in time you were talking about building houses. You were building houses. You would take pictures of houses that you would see in the neighborhood, and then you would go try to build it in. Was it Roblox or was it Minecraft? Which one was it?
It was Roblox and Minecraft.
Roblox. Yeah. So it's okay to kind of, the only way you can figure out what you're good at is to just kind of explore. You are definitely an explorer, so that's good. But for the sake of figuring out what your genius is, I actually want to talk about passion from a very interesting point of view. Okay. The point of view is, if you want to figure out what you're passionate about, you got to figure out what you hate. What you think about that? You weren't expecting me to take it there, were you?
A little bit.
You were a little bit. This might be sounding a little familiar to you, maybe.
Yeah.
Okay. So why I'm asking this rhetorically. If you feel like you have the answer, feel free to chime in. But why would I be tying what you hate to your passion?
I have no idea at this point.
You know what I like about you, London? Like you will. When I ask a lot of kids this, they start trying to make up stuff and they don't know. And I be like, just, and after a while, they be like trailing on. I'm like, yeah, you can just cut it off. It's okay. I like how you like, I don't know. Like, I don't know. So the reason why I'm attaching this thing of what is it that you hate to your passion is because, have you ever heard somebody say, hey man, I hate that with a passion?
No.
Well, live a little longer. You 12 now. Live a little longer. You'll begin to hear somebody say that. It might be you, it might be somebody around you at school, whatever. But the thing that we tend to focus on individually, everybody has different things that they hate. But there are some things that we have all experienced in our lifetime, and maybe you're a little too young to experience it, but I don't think you are. I think you've experienced some things that when we encounter the brokenness of the world and it impacts us in a negative way, or it impacts somebody that we care about, someone that we love in a negative way, when we see it, we'll start to talk about it like, ooh, I hate that. I hate that this exists because it makes me feel this way. Like I would, if we go back to this fish example, and by the way, this is just, I forgot to say this, so I'm gonna say this, really quick. If a fish stays out of water long enough, what's gonna happen?
It will die.
It'll die, right? And so your genius, our genius potential dies and stays latent or stays inactive if we don't get in our right element, if we don't get in our right lane. Okay. So going back to this fish, if this fish became aware and was like, you know what though, like people need to stop. Well, let me do this. I've never asked this question before. I'm doing this with you. I hope you pick up what I'm trying to put down. If you were that fish and everybody kept judging you about how well you could climb a tree, what would you begin to hate?
People.
What I mean specifically, like what type? What are people doing? If you can't hate people in this equation though. So you can hate stuff that people do though. And so if you were that fish, what would you hate that people did to you?
I hate that people would judge me for how I climb a tree, even though I'm not supposed to climb a tree.
Yeah, exactly. Right? Because it makes you feel like something wrong with me. Something must be wrong with me because I can't climb this tree. But eventually, if you look up, you're like, look, the water's right there. Can somebody just put me in the water? Can y'all just like let me prove myself in the right element, in the right lane? But otherwise, but everybody keeps coming by doing the same thing. You're going to begin to hate it. Like I hate when that happens. So we got to be careful because when we start talking about hate, we don't hate people, but we do hate the things that cause people to do stuff to us that makes us feel less than important or less than special. We can hate the actions that people take against us that make us feel less than loved and less than accepted, right? And so that thing that most of the time is an experience that you have, like, I don't like it when people do this. It makes me feel like I don't belong. That's the thing that I want you to focus on. Or it may be because even what I tell most adults is this thing comes in when we're a kid, whatever it is. And as we get older and we begin to look back on our childhood, we're like, you know what? I hate that I went through that. Like, why did I go through that? Why did I come up poor? Right? Why did I come up and I was bullied all the time? Why did I come up and people treated me differently because of the color of my skin? That's the type of stuff that people begin to be like, I hate that. And what eventually happens, London, is somebody be like, you know, I hate that. Somebody should do something about it. And guess what, London? If you keep finding yourself talking about the same thing that you hate over and over again, there's no longer a question of somebody needs to do something about it because that somebody is you. How's that hitting you?
I mean, if something goes wrong and I don't do anything about it, I'm okay with it until I actually feel it coming to me like, why did this happen to me? What did I do? So I can kind of agree with you on that.
Okay. But like this is not something that happens once. It's not a one-off. It's something like, yo, this keeps happening to me, or this keeps limiting. I feel like it's limiting everything that I do. Like you've been blessed. You haven't grown up poor, right?
Mm-hmm.
You would agree? But there are some people who have grown up in poverty and they feel that limit. Like there's some things that I can't do. I feel this weight on me and I'm like, I hate being poor. And so they grow up and sometimes it's a bad motivator because then they're like, well, I gotta have money, right? I gotta have money because I don't want to feel like how I felt as an adult when I was a kid. I don't want to feel that anymore. I'm kind of getting ahead of myself, but I'm gonna give you a good example. All right. You know who LeBron James is, right?
Yep.
So LeBron James, do you know anything about LeBron?
Nope.
Other than, he's a basketball player for the Lakers. He's from Ohio. He's won several different, NBA championships with several different teams, right? But he grew up in a city called Akron, Ohio, and it was an impoverished minority city. So he looked around when he was younger and all he saw was just poverty. And that poverty was going to limit where he was going to go. He had this talent of basketball. Most people think that if I ask, what's LeBron's genius? They'll say basketball. And I'm like, no, that's not his genius at all. His talent is basketball, or rather basketball is his talent. But I'm going to tell you how I've seen him operating his genius outside of the court, right? So he grew up in Akron, impoverished city. It was going to limit what he was going to be able to do and how far he could go with his skills. And so his parents took him out of public school because public school is funded by the state and the state funding was trash, right? They had, messed up, the books were outdated, the schools were run down, all manner of stuff. Nothing that you've ever experienced in growing up in PG County, right? PG County is one of the most affluent, one of the most prominent African-American counties in the country. So his experience was the exact opposite of what you came up in. And so he got put into a private school because the private schools have all that good money so that he could kind of be insulated from the poverty that was around him so he could focus on getting his grades right, but more importantly, focusing on his basketball talent that he has. And so what I've seen him do as a grown man that I respect, even though I don't really like LeBron, is he said, look, I got this money now. I won championships now. I got endorsements now. And so he thought outside of and beyond himself. Yeah, he's situated. His family is straight now. I'm sure his mama got a nice house. I'm sure he got a couple cars. I'm sure he got some chains, right? But he didn't just focus his wealth on himself. He said, hey, look, I'm going to go back to Akron, Ohio. And the thing that was going to be a limit for me, that was a limitation for plenty of people, I'm going to fix it. And he built a school. He built a public school in the city that he grew up in. Did you know that?
No.
Do you think he just built the school that was just like the school that he had when he was a kid?
No.
How do you think he built his school though?
Large.
He put some money into it. He's like, you're going to have the most current technology. Your computer's going to be up to date. Your school, your books are going to be straight. Your lockers are going to be, the hallways are going to be pristine. The staff is going to be straight because he poured resources into his community and said, no more. I hated this growing up. And so that's true genius. That's taking your talent and saying, look, I've amassed something great. I've amassed this wealth of not just money, but this wealth of resources and knowing how to the right people to talk to. And now I'm going to put it back into my community and leave it better than how it was when I was a kid. That's genius. Do you see it?
Yeah, actually.
Okay, cool. So the last component of the genius equation, purpose, is really simple. Your purpose in life is to figure out what your talent is, and then use that talent to address the thing that you hate. And there's plenty of stuff to hate in the world, right?
Mm.
There's plenty of stuff to hate because the world is a very broken place. And that brokenness affects each of us differently. And we each, when we begin to focus on, hey, look, something's broken and I'm gonna fix it. And when something's broken and you need to fix it, you need a tool, right? If you have the right tool, you can fix what's broken. Well, the tool that you have to look for is your talent. T for talent, T for tool. And so that's your purpose in life. What's the tool that I have that I can use to apply and fix the thing that's broken in the world, the thing that I hate? And so I was talking to some kids about this last week, and I had to like address this one little girl because she was like, I hate how tall I am because it makes me stand out and people make fun of me. And I'm like, well, you can't hate yourself. The fish can't hate that it has scales on it because the scales help it swim, right? So there's two things that you can't hate. You can't hate people. You can hate what makes them treat you bad. You can hate the actions that they have against you, but you can't hate people. And you can't hate something about yourself because you were fearfully and wonderfully made, right? So my next question for you is like, what's your talent? What do you think you're talented at?
Many things.
Okay.
Swimming, dancing, mostly sports, and singing.
Swimming. Oh, you back on singing. Okay. All right. Did you tell me what you hate though?
No.
What do you hate?
I hate people who just don't act right and don't do what they should do, even though it's the rules, it's embedded in every single person in their life, but they just don't listen to it.
Okay. Say that for me again. I got a little distracted because I was rolling my foot on this and it made a little noise. And I'm like, I hope she don't think I passed gas. So I'm just, for everybody that's watching, I did not just pass gas. That was just this on the floor rolling around. All right. So explain that to me again. You said you hate when people do what now?
When people don't listen to the rules they're supposed to be following that everybody else listens to, and losing.
To the rules. Okay. Why do you hate that? That's basically rebellion. That's what it sounds like. If could I give the word rebellion to that and you would be like, yeah, that's it.
Yeah.
Okay. Why do you hate rebellion?
Because people think that they can be excluded because I don't want to do this or I don't want to do that. But even though everybody else is doing it, you have to do it as well. It's a whole class or family. I'm trying to remember the word. Effort. The entire class or family effort.
Yeah. When it's in a group, let me see if I understand what you're saying. When it's in a group and one person rebels, I bet you hate it when the whole group gets punished because a couple people are not doing right. Yeah.
Yes.
Well, that's not fair, right? Like, man, can you just get your life together though? Like, stop acting up and wilding out because that's gonna cause all of us to suffer. So that's a selfish person too. They don't care about nobody else but themselves in a group setting. So a selfishness and a rebellious person you say you hate. Okay. So and you know over time you can have different things that you hate. Okay. Do you know what I would not have been mad at if you had said? And I'm not trying to get you to say this, but I would not have been mad if you had told me school. I hate school, Uncle Reggie. You know why I wouldn't be mad at that?
Why?
Because if in fact you hate school, then that lets me know you're a future educator. Because the school, if you say that you hate school, you hate a subject, and I've had kids say this to me, then I'm saying, all right, you hate school because it's making you feel like this fish out of water for whatever reason. You have a learning style that the school is not teaching you from, and so you hate it. You're like, man, this makes me feel like less than. Y'all putting labels on me. I'm ADHD. I'm ADD. I'm on an IEP. Like all this other stuff that makes you feel like you don't You don't fit in. And they're like, I hate this place. Like, it doesn't make me feel like I belong. And so I'm like, I get that completely because there's so many different ways for people to learn, but we don't reach everybody at their level. We say, hey, look, fit into this box. And somebody's like, I don't fit into that box. I don't learn this way. But they're like, I don't care how you learn, like learn it this way. And so when that type of person, instead of running away from the school system because it's broken, they run towards it and say, hey, look, I'm going to become a teacher. And the way I learn, I'm going to teach how I learn. And guess what? Once you start teaching how you learn, then you're going to reach other people who learn the same way, but feel pushed to the side and ostracized in school. And now you're beginning to fix the problem instead of just talking about it. You're like, I hated school when I was coming up. So, and when I say this in front of teachers, they're like, you know what? That actually makes a lot of sense. That's why I do what I do. I met this one teacher one time. She was an administrator. She said, you know what? Do you know what it means to be a truant?
No.
Truant is somebody that skips school a lot. Like, I'm not talking about occasionally. I'm talking about like, yeah, they skip school all the time to the point of they might not graduate. So she was like, I was a truant when I was this is an administrator at a well-to-do school. She was like, I was a truant when I was growing up. School didn't vibe with me. I just didn't click. So I just left a lot. And she was like, now that I'm an administrator, I can see when somebody's not fitting in. And when I see that they're starting to develop this truancy, she said, I can go talk to them in a way that nobody else can talk to them because I understand where they're coming from. And now I can make them feel like they belong. And so like, she can address this truancy that she sees with people skipping class because she was a truant herself. And so she's helping to fix the problem. That's genius. That's how genius works as I've been defining it. All right. So let me help you out. So you say you sing, you say that you swim, you say all things like you're athletic, but let's focus on singing though. So if you could be a well-known singer and you had this passion on the inside of you, what might you do to unlock your genius as a singer who hates rebellion and selfishness?
Practice more.
Practice more? Okay. Once you practice more though, so let me say this in a different way. You have a platform, London, because you've done the practice. You've submitted to teachers who have, coaching, people giving you, singing lessons. You submitted to all that. You put in the work. You were disciplined. You got recognized, and now you have a platform that people are like, yo, I'm gonna go hear London Hardy sing though. And so London Hardy has a platform as a singer, but she has this thing on the inside of her in her heart. Like, I hate it when I see this selfishness and this rebellion in people. What might you do with your platform to address your passion?
I would tell people to obey the rules and stay out of trouble.
But I mean, they hear that all the time. Like, why would they listen to you? Like, you using your platform to tell people like you should not be rebellious and you should not be selfish. Okay, let me say this in a different way. Because you could use your platform to do that. Like if people are following you, you got millions of followers on Instagram, all the different social media platforms, you could say something that people wouldn't hear from their parents, they wouldn't hear from teachers, like, yo, stop doing this selfish crap, right? And they might listen to you. But do you think they will listen to you, to your message better if you spoke it or if you sang it?
Sing it.
Yeah, if you made a song that made people think about what it means to be selfish and how it impacts other people, or what it means to be rebellious and how it impacts other people in a negative way, somebody's going to pick up on that and be like, oh, snap, like London is saying something real decent right now. Like, dang it, I need to change my life. Does that even happen today? Do people's lives get changed because of songs? Do people get encouraged because of songs?
Most probably.
It's possible, right? I've heard people say, hey, look, I was suicidal. I had these thoughts about taking my own life, doing all manner of stuff, hurting myself. But then I heard this song and it made me stop. You know, it's something about music. Music opens you up to receive information in ways that you normally wouldn't receive it. That's why we learned our ABCs by a song, by Twinkle Twinkle Little Star, right? And
Mhm.
so that's what you could do, London. Like if you took this talent and honed it and began to really use it as a craft, like I'm going to invest time in it, I'm going to be disciplined in it, I'm going to be a singer that's recognized by my peers, that's recognized by people across the nation and across the world, then you say, okay, I'm gonna use this now I'm gonna make songs that address selfishness and songs that address rebelliousness. And then when I do get a chance to talk to kids and go to schools, because celebrities get invited to talk to kids in schools, right? Then you can begin to
Mhm.
say, hey, look, I want to talk to you all about selfishness and being rebellious. And they will listen to you more than they will listen to the people who they hear telling this every day.
Mhm.
That's how you unlock your genius, London. And you have the potential to do it. Okay.
Okay.
So the thing of it is, I'm not saying that this is the way that you have to go, but if you just take this model that I've told you, like identify your talent and apply it to your passion, you can tap into your genius like in many different ways. Because even like you said, you have many different talents and you have several different passions. And so, it's just a matter of putting the puzzle together and figuring this out. And I believe that you have the right uncle to help you do it. You have the right mom and grandmom and you have people around you that can really help you do this and have been trying to help you do this since you came into this world.
Mm.
You have the ability to even without a big platform, you have the ability, because I know that people know that you can sing. You have the ability to, I don't know if you've ever written a song, but I feel like that you have the capacity. I know you used to draw, so I know you have the capacity to capture what's in your mind and put it on paper. And I believe you can start tapping into your genius now. You don't got to wait till you're an adult. You can do this. But like you said, it's just like, if I put my mind to it, I can do it though. So it's just a matter of what will you put your mind to? What will you allow yourself to do that doesn't compare yourself to somebody else, but just says, you know what, though, I'm gonna be the best version of me, and I'm gonna change the world around me. You can do that, London. And so that's what this is all about. It's just to encourage you, it's just to empower you. Because when you feel empowered, guess what? You'll start to empower other people. What do you think? What you thinking?
How would I empower people? By singing.
If you have the right message, it's just like what I just said. Somebody may listen to your song and be like, whoa, like, did you hear those lyrics? Like, okay. And there's this quote that says basically what it boils down to. Did you ever watch Aquila and the Bee? Do you remember that?
No.
All right, that's with Kiki Palmer. At the end of, or kind of in the middle of that movie, they had this quote that said basically, it's a long quote, so I'm just going to give you a part of it. It says, when you let your light shine, you give permission for somebody else to let their light shine too. So when you say, hey, look, I've got something to offer and I'm going to offer it, somebody will look at what you're doing and like, doggone it, if London can do that, like I can do it too. Like, here's the example. Like, remember your question and then translate that to this example I'm going to give you. When my kids wrote these books at the age of 9 and 7, there were people around them who were the same age. I was like, well, doggone it, I was writing too. Like literally that happened to Josiah. When he published his book and came into 4th grade the next year with this book, his friend was like, dude, I was writing stories too. And I said, let me talk to your friend's parents. And guess what? Within a couple of months, I helped his friend become a self-published author. That's how Josiah empowered his friend, because he was like, doggone it, you the same age as me. You was writing just as much as I was writing. If you can do it, why can't I? I was like, why can't you? Let's go. Josiah empowered somebody else. So you can empower somebody else just by, hey, look, London's singing. I got a good voice. I can carry a note. I can sing too. Maybe they don't like, maybe they don't hate what you hate, but they can say, hey, look, I can come up with some songs, some lyrics that address something that I don't like in the world and have just as much impact as London. That's how you empower somebody else.
Okay.
It's not even like you have to do it. You have to go over and tell them, hey, write this song. Like, no, just you being an example of being the best version of you will inspire somebody else to be the best version of them too. And then it just keeps spreading. And that's how genius works. It begins to spread around and not just be focused on you. Now it's like lights just beginning to come on all around your school, all around your community, all around the world. All right.
All right.
So how you feeling now? Are you still kind of like genius? Yes, no? Or you feel like you're more along the, yeah, I'm a genius though? Like, how you feel?
More along the path to genius.
Hey, then I've done my job, because we see it in you, London. So that's all I got. Do you have any other questions or comments for me?
No, not really.
All right, cool. Well, this has been Inkwell Spoken presents Common Genius, Uncommon Destiny. I am your host, motivational speaker and author, Reggie Key, and this has been my genius guest, London Hardy. It's my uncommon cue to unlock the genius in you.
Thanks for joining us for this week's episode. Make sure you pick up the book, Common Genius, Uncommon Destiny by my dad, Reggie Legend, available on Amazon and at inkwellspoken.com. Connect with us at Inkwellspoken on all social media platforms. If you enjoy our content, don't forget to like, subscribe, and hit the notification bell so you never miss an upload.